I walk into the tent, I get this funny sensation. I just walk in by myself, and I'm wearing my big parka and all that stuff with the mittens and stuff. I walk in, take a sniff. What the hell? It's a strange smell in there. But it was great. It was a great smell, but a strange smell. See, I sniff. Can't figure out what it is, but it smelled good. I look around, nothing. It's changed. So in comes Elkins, drifts in. I said, "How are you, Elkins?" Elkins said, what's that smell? I said, "I have no idea." I said, I'm trying to figure it out myself. And we're sitting on our footlockers trying to figure out what the smell. It smelled great. We knew that it had nothing to do. It was vaguely, well, it was more than vaguely. It was because it was so faint at first. It was vague, but it was very appetizing. Had nothing to do with what you smelled around the mess hall. I mean, I might add. Now, no, I don't want to put the mess hall down. It was, but it was not appetizing. You walk past the mess hall. You didn't say, "Oh God, I can hardly wait for chow tonight." Oh wow, oh man, you knew you were going to get the tuna salad loaf, which was a big thing. And we always would get salmon loaf. They call it salmon loaf. You've had salmon loaf at the bottom burnt and the top was raw. You remember how that was. And also, we used to get these canteen cups full of semi-liquid Jell-O. That was called dessert, which was usually poured over, say, your roll or something like that. It was called dessert. And so, you never were excited. But this was an exciting smell. An exciting smell. Now, it was a smell that was vaguely familiar, but not exactly familiar. Vaguely. What the heck is that? And Elkins keeps sniffing. So I don't know. He says, it smells like something like onions or something. He says, "What is this? What is this smell?" I says, "Don't tell me gases. No, it can't be. What is that?" In comes Gasser. Gasser, instant he walks in. He says, "Hey, what's this? Well, who's been eating in here?" Because it was absolutely strictly against the rules to have anything to eat in the tents. That was absolutely verboten. You didn't know that about certain armies. No way. Well, that was to prevent bugs from coming in by the million, see, so they had rules about that. But it smelled like something. And one after the other, the guys are drifting in, and finally the whole tent is filled, and sitting over there on his footlocker, quietly saying nothing to anybody, writing a letter, is Goldworm. Well, he's the only one that didn't say anything when he came in. Goldworm didn't say, "Hey, what's the smell?" Nothing. Well, of course, we were used to him not saying anything. Until maybe 3 days later, that remained a vague mystery. And then one night, somebody came back we were all on guard duty. In fact, the whole tent was empty except for Goldworm. And somebody came back to the tent and caught Goldworm on flagrante. He was caught in the act. He had an electric iron. You know what electric iron is? One of these little folding kind. And he had propped this little electric iron up. We had electricity in this tent, He had propped the iron up on a footlocker between a couple of bricks. So the top was the actual hot part of the iron was facing upward. And on that footlocker, he had his canteen. He actually had his mess kit. And he was sitting there with this thing going away, and he was frying his stuff. In came Elkins. See, Elkins caught him red-handed, see. Elkins walked in, and he's frying something in there. And it was an unbelievable smell. And Elkins came running out of the tent, see, and I was down at the other end of the company street. He hollers, "Hey, Shepherd." I said, "Yeah, Elkins." He said, I caught him. I says, "Caught who?" He says, "Goldworm." Well, at that point, I hear a lot of yelling in the tent. And that night, we really had a night in the tent. Because Goldworm could no longer hide it. See, one of the things in the Army is that you try to hide the stuff you got from all the other guys. I mean, let's face it, if it turns out you got a pound of cookies, I mean, how long is a pound of cookies going to go with Company K? You're lucky if you get a raisin out of it, So they just, they eat the paper and the box and everything else, see, including the stamps. Well, he had hidden this thing away, and how he did it, I do not know. For about 3 or 4 weeks, he had hid it in his bunk, like under the bunk somewhere, because we had inspections and nobody found it. Goldworm had received for Christmas from somebody back in New York a 5-foot-long kosher salami. I want to tell you, I mean, it was a real one. You know the kind you see hanging in the 7th Avenue deli in the window there? I've never known anybody who actually had one of those big salamis. Now, most everybody gets a little salami, a little pound salami. He had a salami that was 5 feet long all the time, and he had been sneaking when nobody else was in the tent. He'd been knocking off chunks of the salami and frying it on the oven, on that little iron, see, and eating the salami. He would sneak bread in from the mess hall, and he was making these fantastic fried salami sandwiches. And here, all the rest of us were living on salmon loaf with the cold beets, and the Jell-O. Well, I want to say, from that minute on, Goldworm not only became one of the boys, he became the most sought after of the boys. I mean, Goldworm, and he starts to, well, at that point, when you're caught red-handed and you got a 5-foot salami, you can hardly say, all right, you guys, it's my salami, and the hell with you. You can't do that. Not when you're living in the same tent. Even Goldworm couldn't get away with that. And so every night, after lights out, see, we had this lights out, they'd pop off a cannon, and lights would go out, see? The lights would go out. They just, company street lights out. And if you had a light in your tent that was on, they'd just come along and holler at you. All right, come on, let's go, you guys, lights out. And we had this light bulb. And so every night after lights out, Goldworm would get out his iron. And he'd run the extension up, he'd put the plug in there, and we'd sit around in the dark and fry salami. Well, of course, it had to happen. By maybe the 3rd or 4th night, somebody had to blab his big, fat, stupid mouth. There's always one guy that has to blab. And we never found out who it was. Some guys in the mess hall saying, you don't think I'm going to eat this slop with what we eat every night in old, Tent 42 down there in the 2nd Platoon. Are you kidding? We have a 5-foot salami, and we eat it there every night. Don't tell nobody. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, that stoop. About the 3rd night, guys start showing up at the front of our tent after lights are out. They'd stick their head in there. Hey, how about, oh, boy, I couldn't, how about a piece of salami? Well, of course, if you say no, he's going to say something like, oh, well, now, wait a minute, you guys. If this ever gets to the front office, you got a salami going here. Forget it, buddy. So one after the other, guys start drifting in. This goes for about roughly 3 or 4 days, maybe a week. And now we got about 25 guys that are sneaking into the tent every night after lights out. This is a 6-man tent. I don't know whether you know how cozy a 6-man tent can get when you got 25 guys eating fried salami all at once. It not only gets cozy, it gets pretty gamey. Pretty gamey. So then guys started to make all kinds of variations on it. One guy had been on KP the day before, and he stole 2 eggs. So he brings in the eggs, He says, how about frying me up the eggs over there, Goldworm? And I'll take my salami chopped up in the eggs. Say, don't give me a sandwich. I'll have salami and eggs. Well, of course, that opened up a whole new avenue, salami and eggs. Guys start bringing in pickles. Guys were stealing piccalilli. Guys were bringing in big fat onions. And the next thing you know, the Company K Deli was in full action. And so at that point, we had to do something. So Gasser finally says, all right, you guys, now listen. It's dark, you see. You can't talk too loud because the tent wall, by the way, is very narrow and very, very porous. And Gasser says, all right, you guys, now listen. He is addressing now 37 guys. In our company, there were not more than 48 guys. So he says, all right, now you guys, from now on, every guy that comes here to this tent is going to have to give us 15 cents. 15 cents a man. Of course, there's a mumble. Come on, 15 cents. And if you guys talk about this thing, if you continue to talk like this, we're going to raise the ante to about a shot. And every night, it's going to be $30 from this whole crowd. Well, this went for about 3 days, until one night we're all sitting around, and we're making money now. And Goldworm is selling the salami. We got a pile of dough, and we're raising money. We're going to buy Cokes and everything else. And one night, I want to tell you, I never heard such a great Christmas gift in my life as a 5-foot-long kosher salami. I had never had kosher salami up to that point. And from the minute I tasted kosher salami, I mean, the soft kind of really, I realized that I was sipping at the mother lode spring of true gustatorial ecstasy. Until that night. The tent flap whipped open, and there, sticking his head in the tent, is Kowalski. All right, you guys. All right, sit. Freeze, all of you guys. Who the hell's frying the salami in here? Well, who's frying the salami? We're all sitting there with salami all over our traps. There's 34 guys trapped with the salami. Talk about cool. Old Kowalski says, hand it over. Come on. Hand it over. We passed what was left of the salami from hand to hand. I'd say there was about 1.5 feet left at that point, and that's a lot of salami. We just passed it hand to hand, each lovingly grasping the salami for one brief instant, because we knew that we had had the last salami that we was ever going to have, that we was ever going to see in company camp. We just passed it from hand to hand, and each one shed a silent tear. And then Kowalski says, all right, you guys, at ease. And away he went. And for maybe a month, we could smell salami frying outside the company clerk's office every night. But we never got close to it.